Listen, man. Let me let you know something, man. There, there was these dudes back in the days named Rags, Edge, Blade, and Shield, right? They used to go around sexing other empresses' children because they wanted to rape the empresses because they're only child. And then when they offended me, I didn't want to be with their mother because their mother offended the crown jewel empress of love. At a certain point, at a vital jewel of enlightenment that was highly educated beyond her education. That, how can I say this? That humbled herself to show a high point of education because I was set in the future at the time. Let me tell you what happened and stuff. So I'm the original doctor, so when I had to operate on their anatomy, so certain people have celestial. When their mothers were guarding them, or the crown empress of the celestial empress, astrological empress, super empress, mega empress, quantum empress, beyond highest empress, beyond highest empress, or and celestial empress or celestial empress, or inner points of enlightenment, or star empresses, or star cluster empresses, or uh, um, astrology empresses, or constellation empresses, or sacred zodiac empresses, or space or element empresses, or earth empresses. A person, some of these empresses have earth inside of them and they are all part of earth. So when a person has sex, if they have a habitation on them, say somebody's being like a host at a time, it has a paradigm, so they have the paradigm on them for a long time, a certain type of way. So when you need help, the empress appears on their physical to regard them at a paradigm of time, so she don't leave her 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 structure of her habitation vulnerable because she knows high martial arts. So is my real wife. So when these individuals used to go rape girls back in the days, it was like the times of Babylon. They were a part of a rape from ancient times. But you remember the certain empresses, like you ever heard the story of Rachel, or the story of the Babylonian when I was the Ephraimite man that they ran to at the time, and when the Benjamin tried to rape, did such a rape, the girl fell at my doorstep. When I opened the door, she fell at my doorstep. I invited her to my house. She told me she didn't have nowhere to go. But because, nothing new in the sun was my child, I let her come in the house and then she went outside and went into a congregation and hung out with guys and then ended up in a gang rape. So when that happened, I knew they were trying to kill my wife. So when I opened the door the next morning, she fell at my doorstep. And I'm like, my wife couldn't believe it, and I already knew. So I was like, I was gonna end that whole Babylon and Sodom. At the time, I was Sodom and Gomorrah and Babylon. I was finished it a certain type of way. One of my other wives, the Earth Element Empress, I told her to regard the place where I was finishing at the time. But I told her, I was like, yo, listen, she was an Earth Empress, so I used to tell her, I said, yo, listen, you're gonna regard what I'm what I'm about to do, and don't ever let nobody ever come back here. If somebody tries to come back here, you're gonna have to finish them. Don't ever get caught in a certain type of way with certain things happening and you don't finish them and then you get caught and then something happens. Say something happens and they come to that land and she gets caught. Don't ever let nobody come back to that land. So I told her, I said, yo, listen, as you're walking straight, don't look back. Because what I'm about to do, whatever memories you had of happiness, don't ever look back and don't ever consider that time and don't ever remember that time sequence a certain type of way. I'm gonna finish individual a certain type of way. And when I'm ready for that time sequence, you'll know because it'll be the times when one has to go into the times of one's sensual of high regard of the reason of refinement and real equality of one's structure, of one's habitation, of one's orientation, of one's social economic segregation. So, I'm just speaking to you, so you have to be educated to know what I'm saying. So, as I said this to my wife, she said okay, but she turned around, and then she turned into a wall of, a pillar of salt. They said she turned into like a pillar of salt. So I just left her. You know what I'm saying? I kept it moving. I wasn't worried about the situation. I kept it moving and stuff. My wife loves me. She knew she'd do something. She knew what was going on. I had to keep it moving, and she loved me. That's what I said. So as I'm going forward, I finished the place. I was an Asian man at the time. They were looking at me, they were looking for me, and I was an Asian man at the time. So I just finished the situation. I was the, I'm the real Zeus. You know what I'm saying? Another person says, oh, the nigga had the what? The nigga what? The nigga did some okay. This nigga did some okay, and I'm the real Buddha. So and people was really, the things I was doing at the time was so much. It was too much. I finished the place where and moved individuals, and then finished individuals a certain type of way, because let me tell you why. They raped this girl, right? So you had certain other people's social economics that caused the first plague in around the times that spread it over into Egypt. The reason why, because you have imagine an empress that goes off, that knows a certain part of magic, and then a person gets rid of her, but she has cellular structure. The cellular structure of the rape, of the embrasion, of what she caused, is causing traumatic experiences in other people's lives. So you have me being the Most High has to cut them people off of the physical reality and how can I say this? Rehabilitate them into the cycle back into life, so this way they won't suffer growing up and suffering and causing distortion and uncomfortability, so they don't do nothing out of their order, so they can know their real empress, so it won't offend them when it comes to the real empress. So in a form, you have to wait. It's like operating on cellular structure. So if there's bad cellular structure, you gotta eliminate the cellular structure and then recondition it. But I'm the only one that could do this, because I don't have to do no cannibalistic. I don't have to eat you. I don't have to do none of that. People were doing. Some people at the time. There was Romans at the time. People were drawing out the situation a certain type of way, and they were wondering. They wanted to know how, in the case of emergency, if something happened to me, how could they do this? How could they bring it back? And then some of these people that were asking me this question was a part of the rape. So these people didn't know that I realized that they were a part of the rape, and I was gonna get rid of them anyway. So, but them, asking me these questions, how to bring somebody back, and it didn't cause the rape. And then I was looking at individuals. I'm a man of real enlightenment, a man of real high regard. And then you rape somebody, and you thinking everything is gonna be okay. No, it's not gonna be okay. So, Rags has Blade and Shield went around raping girls and wanted them to be okay. So, I'm my continuance of my habitation of my, the lowest form of DNA I make is celestial. So the children I make are celestial, but I can make them have celestial DNA, or I can make them have cellular DNA. So I didn't want my magic to go to waste. So I made cellular DNA. I didn't want to make people have celestial DNA. It doesn't make no sense for people to have celestial DNA, because my wife is the empress. The only person that has celestial DNA is me and my wife. So when you check my DNA, it's celestial. When you check my wife's DNA, the lowest forms of our DNA is celestial. The highest form of my DNA is beyond highest of my wife. So I can make a higher form of DNA if I wanted to, but I just don't. So my wife, she only made she she herself only made cellular activity sometimes, some of my lives, because of her, for her own safety. She knew why. So I didn't say nothing to me continuing. These individuals were actually being show rape the Triple Crown Empress. They tried to rape the Triple Crown Empress bloodline. They tried to rape Helen of Troy's bloodline. They tried to rape Harris' bloodline. They tried to rape Helen's bloodline. Helen Helion. They tried to rape not the majestic. They never got to the majestic empresses. They tried to rape the Ten Jewels astrological tree. They tried to rape the Shaolin bloodline. They tried to rape the elf bloodline. They tried to rape the elf bloodline. They couldn't rape the elf bloodline. They tried to rape the elf bloodline. They tried to rape the element bloodline. They tried to rape even the bloodline of Santa. I'm the real Santa Claus, but they tried to rape my bloodline of certain individuals that were I would say they were mountaineers of different habitation of one's social economics, of one's reality, even of the world. You had gray, you had different type of individuals. they tried to reap inside the Ice Galaxy bloodline. They they never were able to get into the Ninja Galaxy bloodline from when I was there. It was impossible. But they tried to reap into the Llama's bloodline. That's when the Galactical War happened. Because when they tried to reap in the Llama's bloodline at the time, that's what set off the Galactical War itself. Because I'm the real Dalai Lama. So the Lamas had a sacred line that was beyond sacred than other individuals actually think. So when they tried to rape through their bloodline, it was no holds balls after that. It was just like individuals had to get rid of the situation because that empress is beyond militant. Like she's beyond militant. She was like fourth to my wife Drama, or fifth to like my wife Drama. My wife Andromeda was one of the highest empresses in all levels of certain spaces. So she was like fifth to Andromeda. Andromeda, my wife, was known as a loving tyrant because the way she would get at individuals, it was like, if you see my wife Andromeda come through, don't let her put her hands on you and stuff. It was just like, you know, you wouldn't even believe what she was able to do at certain time. So just don't let my wife Andromeda touch you. If she's doing something for you, you hand it to her. You don't hold her hand. You don't do none of that. Don't do none of that. You just precise. You have to have precise coordination when it comes to like your hair. You can't even. There's no too much extra because if Andromeda gets mad, you're finished. And once her temper angers her certain type of way, you're finished. You're finished. You don't gotta worry about nothing ever again in any generation of life. Ever again. Ever. It was just like my wife Love. The main astrological empress of Love. If she rolled her eyes at you, you're finished. You don't gotta worry about ever having love a certain type of way in life again. If she rolls her eyes at me, she's gonna die. That would cause her own death. Any end of love empresses ever rolled their eyes at me, that's causing their own death at their point of enlightenment. That's it. Don't let me do it. I don't do things like that. So the evil eye can't even look at me a certain type of way. A person that has an evil eye can't even look upon me at a time. The evil eye, all it can do is look at me and smile. It has to think a happy conscious thought when it comes to me once it sees me. Because I'm the head of the astrological tree of the evil eye and nobody knows. I am Zeus. My wife Hera, we had to have private quarrels. A certain type of way. And Athena would have to stand on guard at the door. That's how real it was. Like, we would have private quarrels, and then Athena would just come and sit. It couldn't even be my wife. And I can't even tell you. Athena would have to come sit at the door, and then only Athena. And then while me and my wife, whatever we're saying to each other inside, or however we were reacting to each other a certain type of way. And if me and Hera argued like that, my wife Helen, I'm not my wife Helen, my wife Hel, it would literally, they call her Hell because of one of my wives, because my wife's martial arts skills beyond supreme, and what people wouldn't even expect. My wife Helen is wonderful, but there's a point, my wife, even the Crown Empress have a point of enlightenment. My wife Hell, there was Helium, and then there was my wife Hell. She was beyond supreme when it came to martial arts. She's so small you would never expect it. Like, it's just like speaking to somebody and they just look like a tiny person, and all she asks for when she's around is me because she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to know nobody else. She murdered half of her planet just because men tried to that they said the wrong things to her, like they wanted to be sexual with her, and then she murdered half of the planet because I was on the other side of the planet and she was calling for me, and other men was coming on to her, and she finished half of her planet already. I don't. If in her physics, if she finishes half of her planet of a social economic system, I'm just not saying too much. Okay. So now, my wife, one one simple being, a real tiny being, a real tiny being. My wife, oh man, I don't tell people the order of my wife, and I don't tell people the disrespect of the things that they do a certain type of way to my wife because my wife in the spiritual realm is more dangerous than she's in the physical realm. The things that she'll do a certain type of way, she'll be lenient if she's in the spiritual realm, but she's way more dangerous in the spiritual realm than in the physical realm. If she's in the physical realm, either way you're finished. You know what I'm saying? She'll have some consideration in the spiritual realm, or actually, she'll have some consideration in the physical realm. While she's in the spiritual realm, if I call upon her and I just tell her something a certain type of way, she'll finish everything. She, it's like pressing the atomic bomb. But I don't do things like that, right? Okay. But I'm just letting you know how real the situation is. So it's just, alright. But like I said, it's just like one learns why it's called mythology. One learns why it's called metaphysics beyond the higher consciousness. Don't offend your dignity. It's like having a parent be on militant and then offending a parent. There's no reason for that type of environment of one's habitation like that. Whatever's influencing that gotta go with you. Correct. But I'm just being real. That's how I look at it. So, I'm just letting you know. So it's like my wife, she she's already a certain type of way, and I just don't say nothing. So it's just like if you're looking at people doing certain things, when a person's doctoring somebody's anatomy, you got to think about the little intricacies of it's just like cellular structure that makes a person discomfortable. It's just like going through a form of, how can I say this, exorcism. If the exorcism is beyond, it doesn't work for you a certain type of way because it might have been a trauma experience, or it might have been more than what a person thinks a certain type of way, or a person might have gave in to the habit of their habit, gave up their habitation a certain type of way, and then causes a certain type of thing to the empress, and depending on how long the empress was covering as a host with the points of enlightenment on that person, one has to operate to get rid of that humane existence or get rid of you know, that the person that's causing it out there that's continuously doing wrong. Because if you have an own social economic empress, and then you click another cellular structure of an opposite empress on it, and then you're precise to your only one empress. You're not me, you're not the empress. What are you doing with another outside empress influence? That means that when the empress is looking to form on a higher level of her being at a time, you can't have interruption a certain type of way that will fuck up her nervous system. So one has to be precise even when it comes to that. This is why I taught education, because doing things like this calls for preciseness even in the physical reality. You can't be careless of one's higher conscience. It's called the higher conscience. It's like dealing, controlling the nervous system or one's habitation. It's like it's more higher, and people don't even have it like that. It's like telepathy or telekinesis. It's like you have to be precise with the things that you're doing. You can't be destructive a certain type of way because it will cause some type of physical. It's just like you can't risk the empress life being in danger at any given moment of the reason of your habitation, and depending on the who are you, and the purity of the physical reality. And then knowing that I'm I'm the real emperor of existence in life himself. So my wife can't even risk because she needs a time of refinement of love for herself because it's like a vacation. If somebody's working all day, it's like a certain type of form of vacation because she still has to work. So she needs a form of a certain vacation because when my wife manifests, she's like a schizophrenic. She is like what's her reality is beyond her reality. So she has to be comforted, loved, and it stopped for a second so I can restart it. So she needs good confinement of one's habitation and of one's love. So it only could come from me. So if you try to spoil my anatomy, that means you literally killed the empress because her cellular structure would be the world. Everything would be finished. You know, I'm the real most high, my nigga. I'm not God. God is a person that has to guard me. I'm beyond God. Man. Like, if God fucks up, my nigga, the rain that's gonna happen to your planet, you won't even know about it when it's happening. You just wake up wondering what happened. What happened if you even wake up. I'm just being real with you. I'm just letting you know. But let me just tell you how this is. The Empress needs a wonderful habitation for her manifestation because when she manifests, she has schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is a case of the habitation of the whole atmosphere or the space of the solar system and galaxy resides on a person, and then they're telling you what's really going on a certain type of way according to the habitation. Now, I'm a schizophrenic, but I'm a different schizophrenic. I know exact. I'm the one that won the highest empress of the highest space till there's beyond, till there's no more empresses that has planets, moons, or suns, or Earth, or solar system, and galaxy, universe within them. And I won the elder consciousness and beyond, and until there's only me. So my schizophrenic condition is beyond nice than what you think. Like I'll tell you something, it'll be for beyond a quadrillion, zillion, trillion years to the future. And I'm precise with everything I said a certain type of way. Only me ruffling JR. So you can't even imagine. So imagine a person trying to rape inside somebody's cellular structure and then having to operate to get rid of it because either exorcism or it's beyond an exorcism because you gotta wait till that person commits a certain type of crime, a certain type of way because if if the energy fucks up the refinement of one's habitation, you'll know because there's there's points of the empress that a person can't penetrate or outside energy, so it'll be able to instruct you what you need to get rid of according to their habitation. Now, this chick, age, Shayla, and live with people that rape inside people's other habitation that cause diseases in people's lives. That's what the Egyptian science was about. Like, I should tell people, I forbid you to use them because they offended the Jewel Empress, and the Jewel Empress had to get rid of them at a point. So you have to have some of my sons that has to be alive to tell you what not to do, what to do before it affects the jewel, because the jewel is a higher intensity. Even at the listen, people wasn't ready for my jewel empress even at the times of Atlantis, and my jewel empresses have their own planets. They have their own literal planets. Their planets, some of their planets are beyond the Superman planet. Like their planet is more than the Superman planet, the Superman solar system, galaxies, and universe. And there's a set. Then Superman has his own jewel, and then you have Superman solar system, galaxy, and universe that doesn't even have jewels. It's a literal Superman galaxy, planets, universe, and these individuals are way more militant in the physical reality than the regular Superman jewel planet. These individuals, they, they know what I'm speaking about when they try to act. When they're like, I'm the Dalai Lama. You have to see the real. It wasn't movies. This is real life. When I made films when I was the Dalai Lama, I was an Asian man that had like a white. Sometimes I had a gray and white beard, or I had a black and white beard. Well, it wasn't black and white. It was really navy blue and white beard, but it looks black. And I used to do martial arts. It was so much martial. I used to go. I used to smack stone. Like there used to be pillars and all types. Like the simple, and then they would go fuck your boulders. Listen, and we were dealing with boulders at the time, man. You know, metal titanium ton boulders, smacking them towards individuals more than 1,000,000 miles per hour. And I was making films in ancient times about this. I'm the real Osiris, the real Orion, and the real Orion. The first man of all space to kick ass and take names later. The physical educator of all space, of all levels. And I just look like a simple dude, man. Good for you. Yo, I love